All right, so the new Spider-Man is bisexual and the internet is going crazy over it. So obviously the homophobic people in the world have a problem with this. I don't have a problem with this. Again, I'm going to say this again every time I do not support anyone that spews or believes in any sort of form of homophobia, transphobia, any of that. I absolutely do not support it. I do want to talk about this Spider-Man becoming bisexual, and I understand. Okay, I'm going to break it down. I'm going to break down the pros and the cons of it. I'm a Gemini, so I'm going to always see both sides. And I kind of like, for me, I agree with both sides. I see why it doesn't work and it shouldn't happen. And I see why it should work and it does and it should happen. So I see both sides and I agree with both sides. So at the end of the day, it has happened. So we're just going to have to accept it. Because I think representation is so important. Representing people that are bisexual, representing people that are trans, representing people that are gender non-conforming, all of these different ways that people express themselves, showcasing it in the media, I think is a great idea. But before we get into that, don't forget to like, follow, subscribe, all the above. It really pushes this video out in the algorithm and encourages me to make more videos. This video is brought to you by Brand Video Pro. We help brands increase their influence and sales online. So if you want to increase your sales, your business capabilities online, click the link down below. All right, let's begin. I'm going to start off with the cons of it. So for me, Spider-Man is like, I don't know how many years old, probably over 50 years old. He's an old character. He's been around for a long time. For me, for you to change up a character that significantly, because when it comes to writing, when it comes to storytelling, characters are supposed to be specifically designed. Characters are about the more realistic or the more specific you are with your characters, the more realistic you are with your characters. So changing up, the sexual orientation of Spider-Man is a difficult sell, because and there are many reasons why, but one of the reasons is not only is he already like a very developed, well-established character, but he's also a very popular character in the Marvel universe. Like he's probably the top 5 or maybe even the top 3 in the Marvel universe. He's a super popular character. So changing up his sexuality, I don't know. Like, I want to give you an example. Raven-Symoné, right? Disney, as they were developing her new show, Raven's Home, right? New show, Raven's Home. Disney asked her, should we make Raven gay? And you know what Raven said? Who is actually gay in real life. She's actually a lesbian in real life. Do you know what she said? She said no. And why did she say no? It's not because of any sort of homophobia or any sort of like embarrassment. She's very proud of who she is. And she, made sure she stated that she's very proud of who she is as a lesbian. But the reason why she said no is because, and I'll quote, Raven Baxter is Raven Baxter is Raven Baxter. This character that you guys developed is not gay. Just because it's popular in the media to tell, diverse stories does not mean that you should change up the character completely. So that's one thing, right? The character. Realistically, them changing Spider-Man and making him bisexual, it's not a sell for me. And another reason, and this might sound a little controversial that I'm going to say this, but another reason why it's just like, it's a hard sell for me is because they chose a bisexual character and not, either a homosexual character or changing him to be, homosexual or even trans. I mean, trans would have been, for this specific character, maybe not, but I just felt as though in terms of like, from a marketing standpoint, there are a lot of bisexual people in the world and it's very relatable, but it's not marketed or advertised a lot. So like, the popularity of like people, a lot of bisexual people are in the closet some way, some form, or they're not open about their bisexuality. A lot of them, because people are either like, especially in men, a lot of bisexual men, I didn't say all, I said a lot, are in the closet. So it's not marketed the same way, or it's not as relatable in the media, in the public. When you think about it, because again, sexuality is a spectrum. A lot of people are bisexual, probably most, I said that. But how many people are openly out and bisexual in real life that you know? Probably not that many. So it's not, in a marketing standpoint, it's not that relatable as opposed to having a gay character, you know, or a lesbian character, and therefore it not being relatable in storytelling. Relatability equals being compelling. So is it going to be compelling? I don't know. How many bisexual men do you know in real life? I don't think I know any bisexual men in real life. Okay, I do. But I don't know that many personally. So how many do you know? How relatable is that? And just because you don't know just because you don't know personally does not mean that it doesn't exist. I'm just going to point that out. It doesn't mean it doesn't exist, and it doesn't mean that they shouldn't have their stories told. It doesn't mean that. But I just mean from a marketing standpoint, from a relatability standpoint, I don't know how relatable it is. So here are my thoughts. These are the cons, right? Number one, the character. Switching up the sexuality of a very popular character, that is very difficult. I think what they could have done is they could have picked another character that's like not popular, that not everyone knows. It's not a household name, like Captain Marvel, right? People before the movies, people didn't know about Captain Marvel unless they read the comic books. So they could have picked someone that we don't really know about, that's not already over marketed in media, and then they could have, made them a bisexual character, and that would have been believable. But the fact that you chose Spider-Man, I don't know, it just doesn't seem that believable. So that's one perspective, right? That's how that's how it doesn't really work. But in other ways, I'm going to talk about now why it does work and why it is a good idea. I'm just playing devil's advocate on both sides just to show both perspectives, right? So number one, why does it work? Well, look, let's remember that Spider-Man is a teenager, right? Those are the development years. He's always been a teenager throughout, all of the show. He doesn't get older. He's always a teenager. And teenage years are the developmental years where somebody figures out who they really are. So is it realistic that he figures out that he's bisexual? Absolutely, because that's the age when people figure it out and accept it, And some people, it even happens later in life. So that part of it is realistic. Another part of it is that the fact that they're always changing up Spider-Man. They're always changing it. They're always changing who plays him. It's always a different actor in the movies. So if you can change up the human being that's playing Spider-Man and the nuances of that human being, all the Spider-Mans that we got in the past 20 years have been so different. Tom Holland is such a different Spider-Man than Tobey Maguire, who is such a different Spider-Man than Andrew Garfield. So they're all very different people. So even the way they portrayed Spider-Man was so different from each other. So yes, it is believable to change his sexuality because this is a different person or character. And when you're dealing with a comic book or a cartoon that has been around for so many years, yes, you can re-engineer your character. Yes, you can reimagine your characters and it will be believable. So those are ways that I think it does actually work out. It does actually pay off for them to change Spider-Man. Then the other way, which I think is the most important takeaway from all of this, is about inclusivity and relatability. Creating characters that are compelling to the world, to people, that engage people, that relate with people. And like I said earlier, a lot of people are somewhere on the spectrum in terms of their sexuality, because sexuality is a spectrum, right? So what is it? This Kinsey 6 scale, where 6 is completely homosexual and 0 is completely heterosexual and 3 is completely bisexual, and people sort of move around. Some people are fluid and they move 1-2 spots in their life. It is realistic. So we don't know where Spider-Man is on the spectrum, but he is who he is. And I think it is relatable, and it does sort of encourage men who are bisexual and suppressing those beliefs. And it encourages them to see an example in media of another bisexual man, and it encourages them to just be who they are. So in that respect, I think it's totally a great idea to have Spider-Man be bisexual. Anyway, those are my thoughts, a little controversial, but I showed you both perspectives. I'm a Gemini, so I'm going to always see both sides. And I kind of like, for me, I agree with both sides. I see why it doesn't work and it shouldn't happen. And I see why it should work and it does, and it should happen. So I see both sides and I agree with both sides. So at the end of the day, it has happened. So we're just going to have to accept it. And I'm excited to see how they develop new characters in the Marvel universe and all other comic book universes, and how they develop them with their gender identity and their sexuality. And I think one last thing is, I think representation is so important. Representing people that are bisexual, representing people that are trans, representing people that are gender non-conforming. All of these different ways that people express themselves, showcasing it in the media, I think is a great idea. Anyway, those are my thoughts. Let me know your thoughts. Leave a comment down below. Don't forget to like, follow, subscribe, all the above. My name is Kenim, and see you next time. A peace.